Justin, thanks so much for taking the time to do this, man. How you feeling?
Dude, feeling like $1 million, you know?
You just got done with quarterfinals. How are you feeling now that that is behind you and you are getting a chance to now head into your first live competition of the game season?
Yeah, man, it feels so good. I mean, the open and quarterfinals are like so much fun, but like it just like kind of feels like you're just trying to get to that next step to like in-person competition. But to kind of not put a huge emphasis on the open and quarterfinals and like come out where I did, like I'm super pumped, but like I'm super ready to get back to like in-person competition, you know?
What do you and Adam do going into and during a virtual competition like quarterfinals to make sure that you have as clean a run as possible and your videos look good and there's really no doubt about your score?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's honestly a big thing. I mean, there you see a lot of athletes that have some mix-ups, and I honestly had some last year too, just kind of with video angles and stuff like that. So just kind of making sure, like reading the standards that CrossFit kind of puts out, making sure that your camera's in the exact same place that like where they want it, so they can see like your hip crease going below parallel on your pistols, and just kind of making it easy. You don't want to give your judge or whoever's watching your video a reason to kind of dock you. So just kind of making sure that you're doing everything that you can to make sure your reps are clean as can be.
Mm-hmm. What has it been like for you to go and shoot an actual commercial? I actually just, pardon me, sorry, someone trying to call me, but I just got a chance to watch your 8 Sleep commercial. It has like a really cool retro vibe. What was that whole experience like for you?
It was honestly so different. I mean, we ended up going to New York to do it, which I've never been to the big city before at all. So it was just so different than what I expected. I mean, it was like a legit commercial. Like it was like there was like 30 something people there just to like film me, and it ended up being like a 30-second video that like you guys all saw, but like the back end work that they did on it was super crazy. And honestly, they gave me like the kind of like script of like what we were thinking about doing, and I was like, oh, I guess it's gonna be a little bit out there, you know, but it turned out to be super cool. And the way they put it together, I think everyone had a good time with it.
What's it like working with a brand like that?
Yeah, man, they're awesome. It's kind of a space, like a brand that started kind of outside of CrossFit, it's kind of making their way in, and it's just been huge, especially just being like to have them like as part of the team for my recovery and everything. It's a huge game changer for me. I think sleep's always like the number one thing that affects me like day to day in my training, and when that's on point, like I feel so good. And for me, I always sleep way too hot, and then I don't want to crank up the AC because it's just pointless, and then whatever it is. So it works out really good just kind of have your bed sets, adjust throughout the night and all that stuff. It's been a huge game changer.
Yeah, that you just hit the nail on the head. Game changer for me too, man. I love it. And unfortunately it's packed away right now because we're having some remodeling done, so I don't have it. So
oh gosh.
Oh man, it's like
when
it
you go
sucks.
Head, you like don't notice it, and then you like get go, oh no, this is terrible.
100%. You are heading back to Tennessee to compete at semifinals for the second straight year. What is your approach going into semis this year as it or how's it changed as opposed to last year, or has it changed at all?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it hasn't changed that much. I mean, I want to go in. I obviously want to put out the best showing. Every competition I do, I want to win. Like, there's no doubt about that. Going from the open to quarterfinals to semifinals and obviously the games. But last year at semifinals was super fun. I think I got not necessarily exposed, but like there was a lot of things that I walked away and like, okay, like I had a great run through. I executed the workouts exactly how I wanted. I feel like I finished as best I possibly could, but there was just things that people were better at me at. And like, I think that's the super thing that's cool about competing is you kind of get exposed and find things that you got to work on going forward. And that was huge for me going into the games to kind of find those little things like, okay, like this still needs more attention to be able to compete at the best. And going into this year, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I'm going in to win, no doubt, but obviously the end goal is to punch your ticket to go to the games, but it's in-person competition. And it's like that chance to kind of fine tune what we've been doing, what we've been practicing, and making sure that we're still on the right path.
I've asked you this before, but I want to get your sense of it now that we're actually into the season. But what's it like having that target on your back now?
Yeah, man, it's definitely weird. I mean, I think it hasn't changed too much from an outside perspective, but it's kind of helped me just kind of being like, okay, like what we've been doing has been working. I mean, going from 2020 to get third and then just kind of staying on our path. Obviously, we're keep trying to evolve and make the changes as necessary, but it means that we're doing something right. I mean, to get to third, get to first, kind of go into the open and quarterfinals this year feeling as fit as I've ever been. It's just kind of a big confidence boost, but like just knowing that I'm the kind of guy to beat now, and there's the expectation out there. So it's definitely fun, a little bit more pressure, but I love it.
We can only ask you so much about CrossFit and fitness and all that stuff. So I thought today we might focus a little bit more on just getting to know you, maybe some things that we haven't talked about in the past.
Heck yeah.
So let's start with, where did you grow up?
Yeah, man. So I grew up in Lodi, California. It's like little south of Sacramento. If you guys don't know about that, but I kind of grew up about like 20 minutes outside of the town. Our town that we were in was pretty small. It's Lodi, obviously, but I lived like 20 minutes outside of it. Grew up on like 5 acres, nothing crazy, but just kind of grew up being like an outdoors kid. So it's always super. It's like when I say I'm from California, everyone like just pictures like San Francisco or LA or San Diego or something like that. But I'm from like from a pretty much farm town, I would say.
Other than being an outdoors kid, what kind of young child was Justin Medeiros?
Yeah, I mean, just growing up, I mean, I had 2 older sisters and then me, so I didn't have too many people to like kind of go outside and play with. So I always kind of like messed around in the yard by myself. Me and my dad messed around. We had a pool growing up, so just kind of always swimming, throwing the football outside. We had a huge grass area out front, and out back we had a dirt bike track. I grew up riding dirt bikes and quads and just kind of all that stuff. So like, there's always something to do outside, and most of the time I was just kind of come up with a game to do for myself, but the weekends were the best when you got to have friends over. We'd play like football. I'm out in the country, and a lot of my friends were in the city. So like to come out in the country, it was just like a playground for them. It was always so much fun. But it was props to my mom for freaking taking charge of like 10 kids.
What was, other than being able to kind of go outside and just explore, what was the best part about growing up in Lodi?
Yeah, I think I think it's just like honestly that small town vibe of just kind of everyone kind of knows everybody, and it's just a real like tight knit community, and I think that's always super cool, and that's like always going to be home. But just going from the high school, and even when I go back now, it's like I run into my teachers walking around town, and like kids I went to school with, just I see them everywhere, and I think that's always super cool, and like having that little small town vibe is something that's always the best.
Speaking of school, if I went back and talked to maybe, your first or second grade teachers and I asked them what kind of kid you were, what do you think they'd say?
Dude, growing up like in like first through sixth grade, I've always been like ultra competitive, like I always wanted to do good in sports, always wanted to win, but I was honestly like a huge like poor sport kind of growing up. Like you wouldn't want to play a game with me because if I lost, I'd throw a fit, I'd cry, get all mad. So that took a long time to kind of fix, and wrestling was one of the things that helped that. But honestly, in elementary school, I think that's where I got like my competitive drive to like compete and like do good in sports. Honestly, it goes back to like my PE teacher in elementary school. She was honestly the best. It was honestly so cool. So once you got into like fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, you were eligible to play. And every quarter we did a different sport. So it was football, soccer, our version of rugby, and then flag football. And each quarter, like everyone would sign up, everyone would pick teams, or she would like pick the teams because she had everybody in PE. So she knew like the athletic kids, and just kind of making the teams really well rounded. And then at the end of each quarter, we would hold like the Super Bowl or the World Cup or the NBA Finals, and like the whole school would come out and watch that final game. And in order to get there, we had like regular season and then playoffs, and then you got to like draft a couple kids from like the teams that didn't make it, and then to go play in the final. It was honestly so much fun growing up, and we did that during recess. It was awesome.
Where do you think that competitive drive came from?
Yeah, I honestly like don't know. I think it was just kind of weird. My like family was never super big like into sports or anything like that. Like my dad played soccer in like elementary school, middle school, didn't really play much in high school or anything like that. My sisters cheered. I guess that counts. They did that throughout high school, but I think just like kind of just being a kid and being outside, like I just loved like hanging out and being better, and then kind of getting into, like I said, elementary school and starting sports, wrestling and football. I mean, it's not fun to like lose or be the bad kid. So I think just like always just kind of seeing that pursuit of like always trying to get better it was kind of the thing that I kind of fell in love with, was kind of like the process of doing that.
Speaking of your parents, how did they cultivate that sort of aspect of your personality as you were growing up?
that they've always been just super supportive, and no matter like what I was doing, just as long as I was giving it 100%, they never let me do anything like half effort. I remember I grew up playing soccer for like the youngest age you can start, and I kept wanting to play football, and then I was kind of really burnt out in soccer, and I wanted to like quit and do all this stuff, but they said no, like you started it, you're finishing it, like you're going through, and just kind of making sure that if you're going to do something, you're going to go 100%. And we did the same thing in soccer, wrestling, and football. And just even though I wanted to quit soccer and go on to football, they made me like finish what I started, but then they were also super supportive of me, being like, okay, like making sure that that was the right decision for me, but allowed me to go move on and play football and kind of give that like my all too. So just kind of whatever interest I had, they kind of just let me kind of go for that, and just kind of showed me that, hey, like if you want to be good in something, like it's definitely possible. You just got to put in the work. So I think that was kind of like the big thing growing up, because I did so many different sports, especially as a kid. Like even played like dodgeball and like rec basketball and just like all that stuff. So I think it's just it helps to kind of find like what your true passion is, you know.
Other than your parents, who are fantastic people, by the way, love hanging out with them, who are the people that, you know, had an impact on you growing up?
Man, there's so many. I mean, I grew up right next door to my grandma and grandpa. So, like, I was with them all the time. Like, my parents had to leave to get ready for work. So, my grandma and grandpa were the people that would, like, get me ready for school, take me to school, and then vice versa, pick me up from school, take me home. Like, my grandma, I don't know if you guys haven't seen, I came out with the new podium flavor, cookies and cream. But on the back, I got to write, like, why I chose cookies and cream. And that's just, like, the best flavor for me. I loved it because in elementary school, my grandma picked me up from school. We would always go to Donkey J's ice cream shop, and I'd get a cookies and cream milkshake every single time. And it's like one of like my favorite memories as a kid. So it was pretty cool to kind of have that kind of built in. But just like a lot of things like that. Like my grandma and grandpa always played with me. I remember my grandpa just kind of every time I went over, like, oh yeah, I need help with something. I'd go over there and like, all right, one more thing, and then I'd help him. Like, all right, well, one more thing, and then just keep going. But I think just so many people, my family, my sisters, and everyone's always been super supportive. So,
As a young kid, what is the most trouble you ever got into?
oh, most trouble. Oh, that's a tough question. I think just like kind of, that's a tough one. I mean, I think like the first time you kind of like, I went out to a party, like obviously didn't tell my parents, was like snuck out with a couple of friends. And then you always think you're not going to get caught. And then the stupidest thing gives you away, and you think your parents are like sidekicks because they can figure it out. But I think that was kind of the biggest thing. And honestly, like, they weren't even that mad, just like disappointed. And that's always just way worse. And I think that was kind of like the last time I did that. But yeah, I think just kind of like sneaking out was kind of the first thing that kind of really got me good.
Yeah, because you realize that they probably did it, so they know all the tricks, and you got to come up with
Yeah,
new tricks
yeah, exactly.
to fool them. When you got old enough to realize that, hey, you know what, one day I'm going to have to go to work, or I'm going to have a job. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I was honestly talking to someone about that a while ago. I was like, I've never like had that thing that I was like, oh nope, this is for sure like what I want to do. And I've always loved fitness, and I'm like, okay, like I could probably do that. And going into college, I was like, I probably want to be like a cop. I felt like a cop or firefighter or something like that. So I went into college as a CJ major, criminal justice. And after my first year, my sister became a cop, and she was like, you know what, like that's not gonna, like having a CJ like major isn't going to help you anymore to be a cop. Like you just need a degree. So she encouraged me to kind of not do that and then pick something else that I was interested in, because being a cop or a firefighter will always like be there no matter what. So I switched to kinesiology, and my plan for that was I had a like emphasis on exercise science. So we went, and my plan was I wanted to like coach for, or be like the physical trainer for like a college, like help the basketball team or football team or whatever it was, whatever athletic sport, kind of hone in and help them like get better at what they do. Because that's the whole reason why I started CrossFit in the first place, was to help get better at wrestling and football and all that stuff. So that was the plan going forward. And obviously it's still something that like I would want to do later on, but I never would have thought that like I'd be competing in CrossFit. I going into college, I didn't even like really think of CrossFit as a sport in general, you know? So it's been pretty cool.
You were a really good wrestler in high school. What was it about that sport that appealed to you to make you want to focus on it?
Yeah, I think just kind of like I said, growing up, I mean, just seeing what like kind of hard work does and then like seeing it pay off. Like the more effort I put in, the better I got. And it was like pretty like point blank. Like you can progress farther in the season, you win more matches and all that stuff. And I remember my first year I wrestled, I only won, I think, one match. And like I still learned so much though. Like I just like to it like made me as a person, but just kind of doing that throughout like middle school and high school and stuff was like the best thing I think ever it could have been for me, because you obviously get that team aspect. You have the whole like crew around you, and like your team is 13 guys. You have all the weight classes, but you still get to go out on the mat and like compete like one on one versus someone. I think that was always so cool, and there's so much like mental game and like behind it. Like it wasn't just physical, and I think like there's so much technique and being able to like outwork someone, and that was like the best thing for it. And I think it was I don't know why, I think like just going to practice and the process of becoming a good wrestler is what was also like super appealing to me.
Facing that adversity early on, only winning one match would force a lot of people maybe to consider something else. Why do you think you stuck with it?
I think just like the encouragement, like from like my parents, like I wouldn't say like I like was more motivated than ever to do wrestling the next year after I lost like all these matches. But it's like my mom and my dad and my whole family is like, being like, hey, no, like it's gonna get better. Like you got to keep working on it. And I was making those progressions. It just wasn't like happening out on the mat. Like I felt like I was getting better, but it just wasn't showing up. And just kind of putting more and more work. I remember going to camps, and that next year I joined CrossFit and I started doing that and doing all those little things, and be able to like come back that next season way better than I was like always the goal going into the next year, the next year, the next year. And seeing that, be able to look back like 5 years ago, I'm like, frick, I'm a totally different athlete as I was then. So I think that was just like super cool.
Was there a moment that you had where things kind of clicked and you said, okay, I'm good at wrestling? And if so, what was that?
Yeah, I think I started in fifth grade, so I did fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and then I got into high school. And I in my eighth grade, I was pretty competitive with people in my age group. It was still eighth grade, and I knew high school was going to be a whole different sport. But I also was able to go in and like wrestle with the high school guys, and I would be able to beat some of them. So I was like super, super motivated to get in. And my freshman year, I was able to get a spot on like the varsity lineup, and I thought that was like the coolest thing ever, because you get your Leatherman jacket and all that stuff. I thought I was so cool, but I think just kind of that was really cool, and kind of becoming a leader on the team like really early on was something that was super cool to me. And I just really loved like it's kind of similar to CrossFit, is like there's always another thing to learn, another move, like, and honing in on your craft. And like just because you can snatch a lot, like you can still work on your technique and snatch more. So there's like you learn like a move, and then you lose a counter to that move and a counter to that counter, and it's just like an endless thing where you can always be better, and there's always so many things to work on. And that's like how I feel like in CrossFit. Like even though like I won last year, I still feel like there's so much I can work on and get better at. And I think that's like that like endless pursuit of perfection. Like you really know that you're never going to reach it, but doesn't mean I'm not going to chase it. So I think that's always been the really cool correlation.
I think sports teach the best life lessons, or just teach you how
Yeah.
to be successful in life. What are the things that you took away from your time as a wrestler that you apply to everyday life?
Yeah. I honestly think the biggest thing is like, is kind of like knowing that like my best effort is enough. Like I can't, like I remember like walking away from wrestling matches, like when I lost, and I was super happy about it. I was like, hey, like I went out there and I know that I prepared for that match the best I could. Like my warm up was good. I went out there, I executed the game plan. Like I wrestled good, but like that guy just like straight up beat me. And like that is what it is. I'm able to live with that, because I know like in my heart that I did everything I possibly could for that moment. But you have those same things where you go out and lose a match, and I was just super furious after, because I know that like I made a mistake, or I didn't do something right. And I think just kind of learning that like, hey, when I'm giving it everything I have to prepare for something, like the end result doesn't matter for me, because I know I did everything I can to prepare for that moment. And I think that's just been super huge just for me, is like not really focusing on that end goal, just like focusing on the work that's getting put in now, because I'll be happy with the end result as long as I know that I'm giving it everything I can now. and it honestly taught me how to lose. Like if I get beat, it's like, okay, I gotta like self-analyze. Okay, how did I do? Is it just because I beat doesn't mean it was like a loss? And I think that's how I looked even like at the MAC last year. I got third at the MAC, but I looked at every workout and I was like, man, I did so much better than I would have in those workouts if those workouts came up like 4 months earlier. Like I put so much work on barbell cycling and heavy lifting. I PR'd my snatch. I did good in the Gretel workout, which is not something that I normally would be good in. And it was just like you take those as victories, even though they're not. So
How did you find CrossFit?
I found CrossFit from my mom. It was 2012. It took me like 5 or 6 months to probably step foot in the gym after my mom found it. But my mom joined the gym that was kind of in our hometown from one of her friends, and she kept telling me about it all the time. And she was like, "Yeah, I went into the gym. It was like an hour-long class. We warmed up. We did like an 8-minute workout, and then we cooled down and left." And I'm like, what? Like, you can't get a workout in 8 minutes. Like, I was training at the high school team at the time, and like, they're talking about going to the gym for 2 hours plus and doing all these things. And I'm like, there's just no way. Like, this is just like some fad fitness thing that's going around. And she kept telling me about it, trying to talk me and my dad into it. Both of us were just like, Mom, you're so dumb. Like, she's like, no, they're hard workouts. And I'm like, sure they are, Mom. Like, I go to a 2-hour wrestling practice, like all these things. And but finally she got me in. She kept saying like, hey, like, you're super competitive at sport, like I think you'll love it. And I remember like my first class going in there, like I just thought, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna run through this. I do football and wrestling and all this stuff. I remember just getting destroyed by everybody in the class, and they all look like, I mean, to my 13-year-old brain was like all these old people that like I was like, I should be way fitter than all these guys. And I remember just getting my butt whipped, and that was kind of thing like, well, frick, I don't like losing. Like, I want to get better at this, and it kind of, I knew like getting better at that was going to help me with wrestling and football, and just kind of one thing led to another till now.
What was your first workout?
Helen.
Oh man, how'd that go?
Yeah. Dude, it was good. So at my gym when we first started, everybody's first workout was Helen. It's kind of like a basic workout. You got running, kettlebell swings are a pretty like simple move to explain, and then pull-ups. And I just like, you look at it and you're like, the workout is so like deceiving. Like, you think it's so easy. And I remember just getting just so bad. The pull-ups, I mean, obviously I didn't know how to do a kipping pull-up, and I was 13 years old. I can barely do strict ones. So I'm like banded pull-ups over there trying to go super fast, all messed up. It was like, it was a mess. But I really wish I knew my time when I first started. Like, back then it's just on a whiteboard, you write it up and it gets erased the next day. So I have no idea what it was, but it'd be really cool to look back on that. What was your first workout? Do you remember?
My first workout, I wasn't even a real workout. I did what I do. I did 10 rounds of Cindy for time, and it almost killed me.
Yeah.
Like because it was the same thing. I thought like, oh, I do this and I play hockey and I'm good, and it nearly killed me. Like, I was like, I'm working out all wrong.
When was that?
Oh man, that was 2007.
Dang. I don't know why this made me think about it, but I did the open announcement with Emma Lawson.
Yeah.
And like talking to her and stuff. I'm like, yeah, like it's like we're young, but like we all been doing CrossFit for a long time. Like, I started in 2012. Like, I've been doing CrossFit for 10 years, like it's just as much as like someone like Patrick Vellner or something like that. I mean, obviously I started at a lot younger age. And it's like, oh yeah, I've been doing CrossFit for 10 years too. She's like, yeah, I was 7 when I started. I was like, what? Like, I thought I was so young because I was 13, and I was talking to Emma about it, and she was 7 when she started. I'm like, gosh, this is crazy. Like, it's honestly super cool to see like what the sport's getting to, because now they're finding it like at such a young age, and like that's their sport. I didn't really look as CrossFit as a sport until I was in college, when wrestling was like no longer an option for me.
Yeah, and it's crazy that those movement patterns now for those kids are just second nature. Whereas when you're trying to learn to snatch when you're in your 20s or even your 30s, it was in my case, like, that takes a long time to learn it. It's just,
for sure.
I really look forward to seeing like what these kids can do when they get to that point.
Yeah, they're just so efficient in their movements. Like it's honestly really cool to see.
When did you know you wanted to, or when did you know you were actually kind of good at this whole fitness thing?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's honestly super weird. I've always felt like I was good at it. I mean, obviously I made regionals when in 2017, and I was senior in high school, and I thought that was super cool. Kind of like going out there, get to compete on the competition floor. Like, and I remember I was in the same regional as Josh Bridges, and I thought that was like the coolest thing. Before the first workout, like I remember he just like making conversation with me, and I thought that was like a memory I'll never forget. He was making fun of my shoes and all this workout, and he like didn't do well in the open that year, so me and him were right next to each other and like on the lane for the whole first day of competition because they didn't reset the leaderboard. But that was obviously like a big moment, being able to make regionals my first year outside the teenage division, because I was never be able to make the games as a teenager. So that was like a huge stepping stone. But I honestly, the end goal is just to qualify for the CrossFit Games, and I kept working for it, but never really like thought that it was actually going to happen. And I think qualifying at the Filthy 150 was like kind of that first like awakening moment. Was like, oh shoot, like I can like do CrossFit as a sport now. Like I made the games. I think I can actually like do something with this. And that was and that's when things kind of like turned, and I really started taking CrossFit as like full go.
I love the story about how you convinced Adam Knifer to become your head coach. How did that whole thing happen?
Yeah, so I went to Boise. So after I graduated high school, I moved to Boise. I like I said, I was just doing CrossFit at my local gym, and the head coach there started giving me extra workouts. And when I moved away for school, I was like, well, I'll just keep doing that. And I was doing personal training. I joined a local gym, and I was working out by myself. And one of the guys from the gym started working out with me. He's been to the games 3 times before, and he thought that I could just get a lot more help from like better programming. So we started reaching out to people, and we reached out to like people like Brute Strength, Comp Train, Invictus, all these people, and they were giving me prices that I couldn't afford at the time. So he thought of Adam, and we reached out, and we got shot down like right away. He's like, no, I don't train athletes. And that was probably in January. He reached out like again, kept emailing him, said no, and finally he's like, okay, like have Justin like write me a letter. And I was like, frick, okay. So like I went, I like wrote this huge letter. I like had one of my teachers proofread it. I had my mom and my sisters proofread it. And then I sent it to him like a day later, like trying to get it back as soon as I can, just kind of explaining like who I am as a person, like what I'm looking for in a coach, and kind of like my goals in the sport. And he thought when he sent me that, I found this out late, like probably like 6 or 7 months later, that I just wasn't going to respond. He's like, oh, some 19-year-old college kid asked him to write a letter. Like, no shot I'm going to hear back from him. And, but I got back to him right away. He talked to his wife. He thought it would be a really cool opportunity because he's coached team for the previous 10 years. But yeah, he said he would only work with me if I could be there in person. I'm like, dude, like I was like, I'm on summer break in 2 weeks. Like I'll drive there. So I drove there, moved in with him, and kind of just like buckled down.
Why do you think the two of you click so well?
I just think that like we both were not like anybody that like just had like this natural like physical ability and just like got there. Like Adam, like I mean he competed at like 185 pounds. Like he's just kind of like that average size of a CrossFitter, but like he grew up playing football and he was linebacker and he was 160 pounds, but he got a scholarship and was able to play like college football as a linebacker at 160 pounds. That just meant like he just really had to like outwork like all these other people, and that's kind of how I felt growing up. Like I was never that kid that like picked up on everything like that, but I knew that if I kept working at it, I could be really good at it. And we both kind of had that like dedication and like drive to be the best at whatever we do. And when we got here, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, obviously we have the mullet connection, and he's just like the like super happy, fun dude. But we both know that like we can, when we're gonna do something, like we're gonna do it right, and we're gonna do it 100%. And at times, man, I think he wants it more than I do, which is awesome to have that as a coach.
How is that relationship between the two of you outside the gym when you're not training?
It's honestly awesome. I mean, I lived with him for 2 years, so we'd be training at the gym, go home, and it was just kind of like being part of the family. But it's always been super cool. He's always going to be like one of my best friends, someone I can talk to, and I know he's going to be there for me like no matter what. But we always like to goof around. We're always playing pig or basketball or just kind of going on runs, roping us into like stupid little games. But I think it always keeps it like super fun and exciting that we get to do a lot of other things besides just CrossFit.
you're so young and still have so much of your life and your career ahead of you. But when you look back on your 23 years on this planet, what are the things that you regret?
Man, I think that's like a tough question. I mean, that's something that like when you get old and look back at your whole life, you don't want to look back and regret anything. And like no matter what decision I make, like I think long and hard about it just to like make sure. And I think I don't really regret anything because I think everything that like happens, like you can make light out of a really shitty situation. And I think that's what I've been able to do a really good job of. Is I think a lot of things happen, and instead of sitting there and complain about it, like you can find a way to like make this better, learn from it, and become a better person. So kind of there's been a lot of things that I wish I wish I would have made the teenage games. I wish I would have like been able to wrestle in college and be like a college D1 athlete. But I also think like some of those experiences are the reason like why I am the way I am today. Like obviously it was super frustrating I never made the games as a kid or in 2018 or in 2019, but I think that shaped me who I was. And obviously if I was wrestling in college, like I wouldn't have like set that goal to qualify for the games because when I wasn't able to wrestle in college, like, you know what, like I'm going to try to train for CrossFit, like see if I can qualify for the CrossFit games. Like I got nothing else to do. So I think just kind of some of those things are like the things that even though they're kind of the things I wish I would have done, it also like is the reason why who I am today. So I don't think I regret too much.
On the flip side of that, what are the things that you are most proud of?
Whew. Things I'm most proud of. I mean, I think like one of the things I'm super proud of is like is being like the same person that I think I've always been, is just kind of being like I love my family, love my friends, and like no matter what happens, like that, like that's who I'll always be. Like I do CrossFit because I love it, and if I stop loving it, like I'm gonna stop doing it. So I think I've always been super proud of like just always doing what makes me happy and not doing what like other people tell me or what I should do. So kind of taking those risks, I think those are something that I'm super proud of, and taking that risk just to like do CrossFit. I mean, I kind of dove all in for it. Like I was a sophomore in college, or some people are living that up to like partying, doing all these things. Like, you know what? Like I'm going to try to make the CrossFit games. And at the time, like you look back and like, oh yeah, it was super worth it. But at the time, like people are like, CrossFit, what's that? You think you're going to go to the CrossFit games? Like really? And I'm telling all like my friends like, oh, let's go out. I'm like, like I got to train tomorrow. I'm like, for what? And I was like, well, CrossFit. And it's just like, it was hard. Like I wasn't making any money when I was doing it or anything like that. I was just kind of taking that risk. It was something that I loved, and I gave everything I had to it. And I think that's something that was always super cool. There's always a lot of people that thought CrossFit was stupid, I was never going to make it, and all those things. But now to like look back and be like, man, like that was so worth it. I think that's like one of the things I'm super pumped on.
I got a couple rapid fire ones here I want to throw at you.
Let's get it.
What is a secret talent that you have that not many people know about?
Secret talent. I just asked someone this. I asked, the class question was a party trick.
All right. That'll work too.
And I can do a backflip.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't do it often. I do it like once a year just to make sure I can still do it, but I can do a backflip.
Okay. Other than being a CrossFit athlete, if you couldn't do that, what would your dream job be?
Dream job. I think like an athletic trainer for like an NFL team.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That would watch on the sideline. That'd be awesome.
Yes.
What is your favorite movie or movies? Like you can give me like your top 3 if you can't name just 1 or 5.
Okay. Step Brothers is just recently in my head, and I've just been quoting it like for the past on end. But like I know it's not a movie, but The Office will like forever be like the greatest show. So I'm loving that.
Favorite food?
Cereal.
Any particular type? Well, the Waffle Crisp.
Yeah, Waffle Crisp by far is like it's here. Waffle Crisp. I have a shirt that says Team Waffle Crisp. So
nice. Now you recently found some, didn't you? Like that is
yes, dude. I was talking to someone about this, and I was like, yeah, like my favorite cereal is Waffle Crisp, but like they discontinued it and all this stuff. Like my dad works at a grocery store, so like he can't get it anymore. And like, oh no, like they have that at Walmart. And I'm like, what? Like I don't know. I didn't shop at Walmart, so I went to Walmart, got a huge bag of it. I'm like, this is awesome. But Walmart is the only place that I can find with it now. So, but yes.
Man, I'm gonna have to give that stuff a try. I'm one of those weirdos that doesn't put milk on a cereal. I just like to eat it crunchy.
Dude, it is so good. Like you open the bag and it smells like maple. Like it's just so good. It smells like waffles, you know.
I'm a cereal junkie, so I'll have to. What is something that someone can do when you first meet them that will make you immediately dislike that person?
I hate when people like smack their food. Like if you're eating like lunch with someone, they're like,
oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, loud chewing.
That's like the biggest pet peeve. Like that just drives me nuts.
Are you and Adam? So I'm going to ask you to. This is a multiple choice one. Are you like Yoda and Luke, Batman and Robin, Mr. Miyagi and Daniel, or Turner and Hooch?
Yoda for. I think Adam's just like that wise guy that kind of knows it all, you know. And I'm trying to be Luke, you know.
No, you're doing a great job so far, man. If you could be in any band, any musical act, which one would you choose and what would you play?
Oh, dude, I think it would be, I don't know. I don't listen to anything with it, but I think like, obviously the classic guitar, like you can't go wrong with like the guitar, but it would be awesome to like shred on a saxophone, you know? Just like
that is not what I expected.
That would be like awesome. Like I feel like if you play the saxophone, you just have to be like insanely good at it. You can't just be like, oh yeah, I can kind of play the saxophone. Like if you have the saxophone player, like you got to rip with it. But I would do saxophone for sure.
That was not what I expected. If someone somewhere one day makes a Justin Medeiros biopic, what actor would you want to play you?
Oh, dude, that is a tough question. Man, who do you think? Who do you think would be good?
That's it. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to think. How about Timothy Chalamet?
There we go. You got to get the hair. The hair's like,
yeah, he's got it. You know, he's a good up and coming young actor.
Part of it. You got to have a fun guy that likes to get down with it. You know.
Yeah, I think he's pretty versatile. You know, I think he could pull it off. We have to bulk him up a little bit.
I know.
You know,
put him in CrossFit classes. He'll be good.
There you go. And then last one, best video game of all time in your book.
Man, I haven't played video games in a long time. When I did, like Modern Warfare 2 was like stuff. Like you can't go wrong there. Like playing old Rust and all that stuff. I mean, it was that was like the last video game that I was like in deep on.
Yeah, that game would make hours seem like minutes. You'd start playing, and then 7 hours later, you're like, "Oh man, I forgot to sleep."
Oh no, yeah.
Well, Justin, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, man. Best of luck in semifinals. Really looking forward to watching you throw down in person. All the best to Adam and the whole crew there, man.
Heck yeah, man. Thank you, dude. It's going to be an awesome season.
Yeah.